She stood alone on the tarmac, a solitary figure in a reflective vest. Just another disciplinary reassignment to a forgotten airstrip. That's what they wanted her to believe. But when the radio crackled and that impossible voice cut through the static, Ghost Lead Actual, cleared for emergency descent, everything changed. No one had used that call sign since the crash 18 months ago. No one dared speak the dead commander's name. Yet without hesitation, she responded as if she'd been waiting for this moment. And when the aircraft touched down, dipping its wing in acknowledgement, the truth could no longer stay buried. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story intrigues you, please consider subscribing to join us for more untold military mysteries. The transport plane touches down on Outpost Serpentine with a jolt that seems deliberate, like the military's final punctuation mark on Staff Sergeant Thale Indira's career. Dust billows across the remote airstrip as she descends the ramp, duffel bag slung over her shoulder. At 38, with 15 years of service, she'd expected better than this forgotten concrete strip surrounded by scrubland and mountains. The air thick with approaching rain. Lieutenant Zephyr meets her with a clipboard and a perfunctory nod. Young, ambitious, with eyes that never quite meet hers. "Staff Sergeant Indira," he says, checking her name against his list, as if there might be multiple arrivals today. There aren't. "Welcome to Serpentine. Follow me." His tour is brief and pointed. Barracks, sparse, mess hall, functional, communication center, restricted access, and finally the control tower, surprisingly well equipped for what Zephyr keeps referring to as a low-priority installation. "Not much happens out here," he explains, gesturing toward the empty horizon. 2 supply drops weekly, occasional training flights using the airspace. Do not expect excitement. Thale nods, eyes scanning the equipment. Advanced radar systems for a forgotten outpost. Zephyr's expression tightens. "Standard issue." "Those aren't standard issue," she says, nodding toward satellite tracking arrays visible through the window. "Those are Astral 9 systems, only deployed for high-security monitoring." "Your duties," Zephyr interrupts, "are simple. Tower duty 0600 to 1800, tarmac duty 1800 to 2200. Every day? Every day. When does my replacement arrive?" The lieutenant's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Replacement? This isn't a rotation, Staff Sergeant. This is your permanent assignment until further notice." As he hands her a reflective vest and headset, Thale catches fragments of whispered conversation from technicians at the far end of the room. That's her, the one who questioned Colonel Vasily during Kestrel. Heard she nearly compromised the whole operation. Lucky she's only exiled, not court-martialed. The memory flashes unbidden, a situation room, her voice rising as superior officers glare. "These coordinates are wrong. There's a village there, not a weapons cache. I cannot authorize this strike." "Any questions?" Zephyr asks, clearly expecting none. Thale takes the vest. "No, sir." That night in her assigned barracks, a private room that feels more like isolation than privilege, Thale unpacks methodically. The room is bare except for a bed, desk, and locker. Outside, wind whistles through poorly sealed windows. From a carefully wrapped bundle in her duffel, she extracts a small wooden box. Inside, a distinguished service cross medal, which she places face down, a photograph turned over so the image is hidden, and a worn leather flight log with a name partially obscured by wear. Her fingers trace the embossed letters, lingering on what remains visible. Dira, Commander. She places these items in her desk drawer without expression, but her hand trembles slightly before she closes it. Through the thin walls, she hears radio chatter from the command center, mentions of unscheduled training exercises and atmospheric anomalies. Outside her window, technicians work under floodlights, installing additional equipment on the perimeter fence, equipment that seems excessive for a remote airstrip, supposedly handling only routine supply drops. 3 days pass in isolation. The mess hall falls silent when she enters. Personnel find reasons to leave tables when she sits. In the control tower, locked cabinets and restricted terminals outnumber the ones she can access. On the third evening, Lieutenant Zephyr enters the tower with 3 officers Thale hasn't met before. They wear no identifying insignia, their conversation ceasing abruptly when they notice her. Routine inspection, Zephyr explains, though nothing about their presence feels routine. One officer, older, with a jagged scar beneath his right ear, stares at Thale with uncomfortable recognition before being ushered into a restricted area. "Do I know him?" Thale asks when Zephyr returns. "Unlikely," he answers too quickly. "Finish your shift, then report for Tarmac duty as scheduled." The weather worsens as Thale takes her position on the tarmac. Dark clouds gather, wind whipping her vest as she stands alone with her head set, a solitary figure in the gathering storm. Lightning flickers in the distance, illuminating the mountains that keep Serpentine isolated from the world. Her headset crackles with unusual activity. Regional stations report navigation anomalies, instruments malfunctioning, weather patterns shifting unpredictably. "Staff Sergeant," the tower calls, "any visual confirmation of lights to the northeast?" Thale scans the horizon. Negative, just storm clouds. Then, a sound. Distant engine noise that doesn't match any scheduled arrivals. The tower erupts with confused transmissions. "Unidentified aircraft, identify yourself." "Tower, we're getting interference across all bands." "Check the radar again. Nothing should be in that sector." Thale's headset fills with static, then clears to absolute silence. In that moment of unnatural quiet, something shifts in her posture. Her spine straightens, her eyes narrow, focused on a point in the clouds where no ordinary person would see anything. A voice cuts through the silence, female, authoritative, familiar. "Serpentine Tower, this is Ghost Lead Actual requesting emergency landing clearance." The tower erupts. "Who authorized that call sign?" "That's impossible." "Maintain radio discipline." Thale stands motionless on the tarmac, her expression transforming from confusion to something deeper. Recognition, determination, and a flash of something like hope. Without conscious thought, her hand rises to her headset. "Ghost Lead Actual, this is ground control. You are cleared for emergency descent on runway 29, wind at 15 knots, northeast." Complete silence follows, both in her headset and from the tower. The storm seems to pause, time suspended in that moment of impossibility. Then, a dark aircraft breaks through the clouds, an advanced fighter with unfamiliar markings. It touches down with precision, taxiing directly toward Thale's position. As it passes, the aircraft deliberately dips its wing toward her, a gesture of acknowledgement that no one else could miss. The tower explodes with alarmed voices. "Security teams to the tarmac immediately." "Who authorized that landing?" "Staff Sergeant Indira, maintain your position and do not approach the aircraft." Security vehicles screech to a halt around the aircraft, forming a perimeter of blinding headlights and drawn weapons. Lieutenant Zephyr arrives, face flushed with a mixture of anger and fear. "Staff Sergeant Indira!" he shouts over the wind. "Step away from the aircraft and explain yourself, now." Thale doesn't move. Rain begins to fall, illuminated in the harsh security lights like silver threads connecting heaven to earth. "How did you know that call sign?" Zephyr demands, closing the distance between them. "Who authorized you to clear that landing?" Before she can answer, the pilot approaches, helmet still on, walking with purpose despite the weapons trained on their position. When the figure removes the helmet, gasps ripple through the security team. Commander Larkin Voss, declared killed in action 18 months ago after a classified mission. Her memorial service had been attended by generals and a congressional delegation. Yet here she stands, scarred but very much alive. "That's impossible," Zephyr whispers. "You're dead." Voss's smile is cold. "Reports of my death were politically convenient." "Stand down!" A new voice cuts through the chaos. Colonel Adair, Serpentine's commanding officer, strides onto the tarmac. His face, normally composed, shows visible shock. "Commander Voss, you were declared KIA. Your memorial is on the wall at command." Voss straightens to attention, not for Adair, but for Thale. "Sir, I've returned with critical intelligence for Commander Indira." The gathered personnel freeze at the title. "Commander?" Zephyr echoes in disbelief. Thale's eyes never leave Voss. "Report, Commander." "Operation Black Veil has gone critical," Voss says. "The parameters you questioned were deliberately falsified. I have confirmation." Colonel Adair steps forward. This is a security breach. Both of you are to be detained until proper authorities can investigate these claims. That won't be necessary, Colonel. Thale's voice changes, command presence replacing the subdued tone she's maintained for months. Washington is expecting Commander Voss's transmission within the hour. Any delay will trigger protocols you don't want activated. This is absurd, Zephyr sputters. She's a staff sergeant assigned to traffic control. Is she? Voss asks, producing a data drive. Or is she Wing Commander Thale Indira, 87th Special Aviation Division, deliberately buried here after she discovered Operation Black Veil's true objectives? Images flash through Thale's mind. Herself in a different uniform, not Staff Sergeant insignia, but Commander stripes. Thale and Voss planning a mission together, surrounded by high-ranking officials. The argument from earlier memories now in context. Those coordinates target civilians. I won't sign off on falsified mission parameters. A general leaning close. Then perhaps it's time for you to take a less prominent position, Commander. In the present, Voss hands Thale the data drive. Everything we suspected, the village, the cover-up, and what they've been testing in the airspace above Serpentine. Colonel Adair moves toward them, his hand sliding toward his sidearm. Commander Indira, stand down. The gathered personnel freeze at the use of Commander from Adair's own lips, confirmation of what seems impossible. You knew, Thale says quietly. You've been monitoring for her return this whole time. That's why I'm here, not punishment bait. You don't understand what's at stake, Adair begins. I understand perfectly, Thale interrupts. I discovered your experimental program was killing civilians. Rather than court-martial me, too many questions would be asked. You buried me here, stripped my rank, isolated me, waited for Voss to make contact. And here I am, Voss says, standing at attention. She salutes Thale formally. Commander Indira, Wing Commander, 87th Special Aviation Division, my superior officer and the only one who tried to stop Operation Black Veil. More security vehicles arrive, their headlights illuminating the rain-soaked tarmac. Colonel Adair's expression hardens as he realizes the situation slipping from his control. How many others know? He demands. Voss smiles thinly. Everyone who needs to. Washington expects my transmission within the hour. Understanding dawns on the faces of the security team. Weapons lower. Uncertainty replaces determination. Lieutenant Zephyr stares at Thale, bewildered. You were... I was the commanding officer of the unit your superiors tried to erase, Thale says, her voice steady despite the rain soaking her uniform. And now, I'm back. The control tower has transformed. Where Thale was once an outsider, she now sits at the central console, surrounded by communications equipment. Voss stands beside her, coordinating with distant authorities. Colonel Adair sits under guard, face ashen. Transmission authenticated, a voice confirms through the speakers. Stand by for Joint Chiefs. Lieutenant Zephyr hovers nearby, watching Thale with new eyes. Why didn't you say something? All this time... Would you have believed me? Thale asks without looking up from her work. A disgraced staff sergeant claiming to be a wing commander? Claiming conspiracy at the highest levels? I might have, he says quietly. Thale finally meets his gaze. Then you would have disappeared too. On the screens around them, classified files appear. Operation reports, surveillance footage, target assessments, evidence of an experimental aviation program using prohibited technology, tested over what was listed as uninhabited terrain, but clearly shows villages and settlements. They said it was necessary, Colonel Adair speaks suddenly, for national security, the next generation of aerial dominance. At what cost? Thale demands. How many civilians have died for your next generation? Adair has no answer. The main screen flickers, revealing a panel of grim-faced military officials. At their center, a general with 5 stars, the Joint Chiefs Chairman. Commander Indira, he acknowledges, his tone formal. It appears we have much to discuss. Yes, sir, Thale responds, beginning with why the 87th Division was disbanded after discovering civilian casualties, and why Commander Voss was declared dead rather than allowed to report her findings. The silence that follows speaks volumes. Secure the facility, the chairman finally orders. Full lockdown until our arrival. No communications in or out except through authenticated channels. Commander Indira is temporarily restored to full rank and authority. As personnel scramble to comply, Voss approaches Thale. It worked. They cannot bury this now. Thale's expression remains guarded. This is just the beginning. They will try to contain it, minimize the damage. Not this time, Voss says, producing another data drive. Because I did not just bring evidence of what happened 18 months ago. I brought proof of what they are planning next. Dawn breaks over Serpentine as military transport planes land in quick succession. MPs establish a perimeter, while technical teams secure servers and communications. Thale watches from the tower as the base transforms from forgotten outpost to the center of a classified investigation. They are moving fast, Voss observes, joining her at the window. Fear does that, Thale replies. They need to control the narrative before this leaks. Too late. Voss hands her a tablet showing news headlines. Mysterious aircraft incidents under investigation. Pentagon announces review of special aviation programs. Congressional Oversight Committee calls emergency session. Someone else was watching, Thale realizes. Someone else knew you were coming back. I had contingencies, Voss admits. If I did not make contact within a specified time frame, selected information would be released to trusted channels. A convoy of black SUVs approaches the main building. The Joint Chiefs Chairman himself, General Hargrove, emerges from the lead vehicle. His expression is thunderous as he strides toward the tower, flanked by aides and security. This will not be pleasant, Thale says, straightening her uniform, still a staff sergeant's insignia, despite the chairman's acknowledgement of her true rank. It was never going to be, Voss responds. The briefing room falls silent as Thale and Voss lay out their evidence, point by point. General Hargrove and his entourage sit stone-faced as years of deception unravel before them. Operation Black Veil was authorized as a limited testing program, Thale explains, bringing up satellite imagery on the main screen. New propulsion systems, stealth capabilities beyond current generation. I was assigned to oversee flight safety protocols. What we were not told, Voss continues, was that the systems being tested produced radiation signatures affecting civilian populations in the test zones. When Commander Indira discovered this, she filed reports through proper channels. Reports that were buried, Thale adds. When I persisted, I was given a choice. Accept reassignment or face court-martial for insubordination. And you, General Hargrove turns to Voss, were reported killed when your aircraft went down during a test flight. My aircraft was sabotaged, Voss states flatly. When I survived, certain elements decided it was convenient to declare me dead. I decided to let them believe that while I gathered evidence. An aide leans toward General Hargrove, whispering urgently. The general's expression darkens further. CNN is reporting preliminary details, he says grimly. Someone is feeding them information about Black Veil. As I said, Voss responds, contingencies. General Hargrove stands, pacing the room. Do you understand what you have done? This technology is vital to national security. Yes, there were risks. Yes, there were mistakes. But the program is necessary. Necessary? Thale challenges, bringing up images of a rural village, medical records, death certificates. These people might disagree, sir. If they were still alive to do so? The silence that follows is deafening. What do you want? General Hargrove finally asks. Justice, Thale answers simply. For the victims, for the 87th Division that was disbanded for doing its duty, and safeguards to ensure this never happens again. Impossible. The damage to military credibility would be catastrophic. The damage is already done, Voss counters. The choice now is whether the military accepts responsibility and reforms, or whether we let the full, unredacted evidence go public. General Hargrove's eyes narrow. That would be treason. So was falsifying casualty reports and targeting civilians. Thale responds calmly. So was declaring a living officer dead to silence her. So was stripping a commander of her rank for upholding her oath. Hours pass as negotiations continue. Outside, more vehicles arrive, more personnel secure the base. Serpentine transforms from abandoned outpost to the epicenter of a classified crisis. By nightfall, the framework of an agreement emerges. General Hargrove, now understanding the extent of the evidence against them, proves surprisingly practical. Full reinstatement of the 87th Division under your command, he concedes to Thale. Congressional oversight of all experimental aviation programs. Compensation for affected communities. And the officers who orchestrated this, Voss presses. Internal investigation, followed by appropriate actions. His tone suggests the actions will indeed be appropriate. Not enough, Thale states flatly. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No scapegoats, no convenient suicides, no accidents. You ask the impossible, Hargrove protests. The public cannot know the full extent of what happened here. They already do, Voss says, activating a screen showing live news coverage. Or they will within the hour, unless we have your agreement. The staring match that follows tests the resolve of everyone in the room. Finally, General Hargrove nods, once. Prepare the paperwork, he tells an aide. Commander Indira will have her division back by morning. As the meeting disperses, Thale finds herself alone with Voss in the now empty briefing room. You think they will honor it? Thale asks. They have no choice, Voss replies. Too many eyes watching now, too much evidence secured, but they will try to manage it, minimize exposure. And the next black veil? Thale questions. The next experiment that crosses the line? That, Voss says with the ghost of a smile, is why we need the 87th back in the air. The following days blur into a whirlwind of activity. Thale finds herself moved from her Spartan barracks to officers' quarters, her staff sergeant insignia replaced with commander's bars, in a hurried ceremony that feels more like damage control than recognition. Lieutenant Zephyr approaches her after the ceremony, his expression a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Commander, he begins awkwardly, I want to apologize for my part in your treatment here. Were you briefed on who I really was? Thale asks directly. No, ma'am, we were told you were a discipline case, transferred after insubordination. Then you have nothing to apologize for, Thale assures him. You were following orders with the information you had. What happens to Serpentine now? He asks. It becomes the new headquarters for the 87th, she explains. All this advanced equipment was never meant for tracking supply drops. It was monitoring for exactly what happened, Commander Voss's return. They knew she was alive? They suspected, Thale corrects. Enough to post me here as bait, just in case. A week after the confrontation, Washington sends a delegation to formalize the agreements reached. Thale stands in her dress uniform as cameras document a sanitized version of events. Politicians praise military transparency, and General Hargrove speaks of correcting administrative oversights regarding her command. What the cameras do not capture are the late-night sessions where Thale and Voss brief selected congressional representatives on the full truth, the evidence secured in multiple locations, the safeguards put in place should anything happen to either of them. This is not over, Voss tells Thale as they watch the delegation depart. They have conceded this battle, but the war continues. Which is why we need to choose our next pilots carefully, Thole responds. People who will question orders when necessary. People who understand that following the chain of command never supersedes basic humanity. I may know a few, Voss offers with a rare smile. The congressional hearing room falls silent as Thale finishes her testimony. Dressed in her full commander's uniform, ribbons and medals restored, she stands before the panel with quiet dignity. And you believe these operations continued even after your initial report? The committee chair asks. Not only continued, Senator, Thale responds. They accelerated. The data Commander Voss recovered shows 17 additional test flights over populated areas after I was reassigned. The casualty estimates are in your briefing packet. Camera flashes illuminate the grim faces of military officials seated behind her. Among them, Colonel Adair waits with military police flanking his position. This committee will recess until tomorrow, the chair announces. Commander Indira, the nation owes you a debt of gratitude for your courage in bringing this forward. As the room clears, Thale remains at the witness table, organizing her materials. A shadow falls across her papers. Commander. General Hargrove, her former superior, approaches cautiously. I want to personally express my regret for how this situation was handled. Regret, Thale repeats, looking up. Is that the word we are using for attempting to erase my career and Commander Voss's existence? I was following orders that I believed were in the national interest, he says stiffly. So was I, Thale responds. The difference is, I questioned mine when they violated our oath. She stands gathering her materials. If you will excuse me, General, my division is being reinstated and we have work to do. Thale's quarters at Andrews Air Force Base reflect her restored status, spacious, well-appointed, with a view of the airfield. She unpacks the same small wooden box that traveled with her to Serpentine, placing its contents on her desk. The Distinguished Service Cross, now displayed properly in a case. The photograph, finally revealed, Thale with her flight crew, including Voss, standing before their aircraft. The worn leather flight log, Commander Indira's name now clearly visible. A knock at her door interrupts her thoughts. Commander Voss enters, carrying a bottle of scotch and 2 glasses. The last of the charges have been filed, Voss reports, pouring 2 fingers in each glass. Everyone involved will answer for what they did. Not everyone, Thale says, looking at the photograph. Several faces are marked with small black ribbons. Crew members lost before the truth could emerge. That's why what we do next matters even more, Voss responds, handing Thale a glass. The 87th is being rebuilt. Full complement, new aircraft, expanded mandate, congressional oversight to prevent another black veil. Thale takes the glass but doesn't drink. And you think they will let us operate independently after this? We've embarrassed some powerful people. They don't have a choice, Voss says with a grim smile. Your testimony goes public tomorrow unless they play by our rules. Besides, they need us now. Because of what you found? Thale asks. Voss nods. The technology they were testing wasn't just about weapon systems. It was about something they discovered, something they didn't want to admit exists. Show me, Thale says. Voss produces a secure tablet. Images appear, blurry at first, then enhancing as Voss manipulates the controls. Aircraft in flight, conventional in appearance except for unusual light patterns surrounding the fuselage. These were taken during the last Black Veil test flight, Voss explains. The one I supposedly died during. Atmospheric distortion? Thale suggests. That's what I thought at first, Voss continues, advancing to the next image. Until I captured this. The screen shows another aircraft, but this one conforms to no known design. Its shape seems to shift between frames, the edges blurring not from camera limitations, but as if the craft itself refuses to maintain a consistent form. What am I looking at? Thale asks, leaning closer. That's what they've been chasing. That's what Black Veil was really about, Voss explains. These have been appearing in our airspace with increasing frequency. The experimental tech wasn't just about advancing our capabilities. It was about tracking and potentially intercepting these. Alien craft? Thale's skepticism is evident. Unknown origin, Voss corrects, but definitely not ours. Not Russian, not Chinese, not anyone's that we know of. They appear, they observe, they vanish. Conventional tracking systems can't maintain lock. Conventional aircraft can't keep pace. And the civilian casualties? The radiation signature from our experimental engines was supposed to draw them in for closer study. They didn't care who was in the path. Thale sits back, processing the implications. This changes everything. Which is why the 87th needs to be operational immediately, Voss says. They've been hunting these things the wrong way, with disastrous results. We need to establish contact, not pursue with experimental weapons. They will fight us on this, Thale warns. They already are, Voss agrees. But public opinion is shifting after your testimony. The president has ordered a full review of classified aviation programs. We have allies in Congress now. And most importantly, we have evidence they can't bury. The next morning, Thale stands before a select committee of Congress, continuing her testimony. The room is secured, no recording device is permitted, only handwritten notes by cleared personnel. Commander Indira, the committee chair addresses her, we've heard your account of Operation Black Veil's civilian casualties and the subsequent cover-up. What has not been made clear is why such risks were taken for what appears to be conventional technology testing. Because the technology is not conventional, Senator, Thale responds, and neither are the objects it was designed to track. A stir runs through the committee as Voss distributes sealed folders to each member. What you're about to see has been classified beyond top secret, Thale continues. It represents the true objective of Operation Black Veil and explains why certain military leaders felt justified in taking extreme measures, including the suppression of civilian casualty reports. As the committee members open their folders, reactions range from disbelief to shock to grim confirmation. "We've suspected," one senior senator murmurs, "but to have confirmation? These images are authentic," another demands. "Verified by multiple sources and methods," Voss confirms. "The objects have been observed with increasing frequency over the past decade. Conventional aircraft cannot maintain visual or radar contact. Conventional weapons have no effect." "And the radiation experiments?" the chair asks. "An attempt to develop an engine signature that would attract these objects for closer study," Thale explains, "with catastrophic consequences for populations in the test areas." "Why are you bringing this to us now?" a skeptical member challenges. "Because the approach has been wrong from the start," Thale responds firmly. "Operation Black Veil treated this as a threat to be countered with force. Our assessment suggests a more diplomatic approach is warranted." Diplomatic? With unknown aircraft of unknown origin? Yes, Senator. The 87th Division was originally established with both defensive and diplomatic capabilities. We were sidelined when we advocated for caution rather than confrontation. The committee falls silent, weighing the implications. Finally, the chair speaks. "What are you proposing, Commander?" "The full reinstatement of the 87th under its original mandate," Thale answers, "with enhanced congressional oversight and complete operational transparency. No more civilian casualties, no more cover-ups. And if these objects prove hostile, then we will have developed proper protocols based on actual understanding rather than fear," Thale responds. "But our analysis suggests observation, not aggression, is their primary objective." By the end of the hearing, the framework for a new approach is established. The 87th Division will be formally reinstated, with Thale as wing commander and Voss as her second-in-command. Their mandate: establish protocols for potential contact while maintaining defensive capabilities. 2 weeks later, Andrews Air Force Base hosts a subdued ceremony as the 87th Division is officially reactivated. Thale stands before a small formation of pilots and support personnel, many familiar faces from before the disbandment, others new recruits selected personally by her and Voss. "What we undertake today has no precedent," she tells them. "We will be navigating uncharted territories, both literally and diplomatically. Some of you know parts of our mission already. Others will be briefed fully after this ceremony. What you all need to understand now is that everything you thought you knew about our airspace and who controls it is about to change." After the ceremony, General Hargrove approaches Thale with unmistakable caution. "Commander, a word?" They step aside, away from the celebration. "The Joint Chiefs are concerned about your approach," he says without preamble. "This talk of diplomatic contact rather than defensive preparations." "Their approach has already cost lives, General," Thale responds. "Innocent lives, and achieved nothing of value. These objects, whatever they are, represent an unknown capability in our airspace. That constitutes a threat by definition." "A presence is not automatically a threat," Thale counters, "and treating it as such has already proved disastrous. The 87th will proceed as authorized by Congress with full transparency and oversight." "Be careful, Commander," Hargrove warns. "You've won this battle, but many in the Pentagon see you as a traitor rather than a whistleblower." "Then they should be very concerned about what else Commander Voss and I might reveal if anything happens to impede our mission," Thale replies evenly. "Good day, General." As preparations accelerate for their first official mission, Thale finds herself in the newly established operations center at Andrews, reviewing the latest tracking data with Voss. "They're following a pattern," Voss observes, highlighting flight paths across the tactical display. "These aren't random appearances. There's a logic to their movements." "Mapping," Thale suggests. "Or perhaps sampling, environmental monitoring." "Possible, but why the interest in our military installations?" Wouldn't you be curious about the only other technological species in your vicinity? The conversation is interrupted by an alert from the duty officer. Commander, we're tracking an anomaly. Same signature as previous encounters, but the pattern is different. Different how? It appears to be circling, maintaining position rather than transiting, and it's broadcasting. Broadcasting what? A signal, repeating. Our analysis suggests it's a mathematical sequence. Thaley and Voss exchange glances. They heard us talking about them, Voss says quietly. No, Thale corrects. They heard me testifying. They heard us change approach. Sunrise breaks over Andrews Air Force Base as Thale walks across the tarmac, now wearing a flight suit instead of a reflective vest. Before her waits a new, advanced aircraft, sleek, purpose-built, with the squadron insignia showing a phoenix rising. Commander Voss and a team of pilots stand at attention nearby, some faces familiar from the photograph, others new recruits selected personally by Thale. At ease, she calls as she approaches. Mission briefing in 5. What we're attempting has never been done before. The brass still nervous about this, Commander? One pilot asks. Terrified, Thale confirms with a hint of a smile. As they should be. What we uncover won't be easy to face. There are still people who want this buried, but the truth doesn't stay grounded forever. As she climbs into the cockpit, her gaze sweeps across her crew, men and women who chose to follow her despite knowing the risks. People who believe that truth matters more than comfort, more than careers, more than following orders without question. They thought assigning me to guard an empty tarmac would silence me, she says over the comm as engines whine to life. They never understood. Those of us who fly don't fear the ground. We just get back up. The formation lifts into the dawn sky, banking toward the horizon. Back at headquarters, a maintenance worker removes the plaque reading Commander Larkin Voss, KIA, from the memorial wall. Beside the empty space, another plaque. Commander Thale Indira, retired, has the word retired being carefully removed. As Thale's aircraft disappears into the clouds, it dips its wing in salute to the rising sun, an echo of the first impossible night when a dead commander returned and a forgotten officer reclaimed her voice. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story intrigues you, please consider subscribing to join us for more untold military mysteries.